Here to give us his take on the civil unrest is Brandon Tatum, the founder of the TatumReport.com. Brandon, I'm glad to have you on tonight because I know that you follow this subject very closely. And just last night, we saw even more chaos take part this time in the city of Chicago. We've been following Portland closely, New York closely. Chicago's been relatively quiet for the past couple of weeks, and I say relatively. But what do you make of the situation last night? Is this something that we think we should be expecting since there was no action taken by the prior demonstrations?
Yeah, 100%. If leaders in the community or leaders in that city aren't going to step up and defend property and do any level of mitigation, these people are going to come out and loot and riot and act a fool. I mean, it is very clear that they're not focused on the objective at hand, which is Black Lives Matter or holding police accountable, anything related to that. They're here to steal stuff. When you go into Louis Vuitton, what does Louis Vuitton have to do with the police department? When you're going and bludgeoning people and tearing up your community, where are you getting at? These people have no agenda. They have no focus. All they want to do is cause chaos. And people need to stop lying and saying that they are protesting. These people are rioters and they're anarchists.
And you bring up an interesting point, and it's the idea that there's a lot of false information when it comes about these demonstrations and really what sparked them. For example, the one last night in Chicago, the initial reports, according to the police superintendent, was that there was misinformation about a police-involved shooting earlier in the day, and that kind of got people rallied up, knowing that there was going to be a protest, and then a lot of people there, therefore, came out and took advantage of this situation. Do you think that when we're talking about this idea of police reforms and police brutality, the misinformation that enters this conversation is fueling some of the violence?
100%. Misinformation is the biggest hurdle that we fight up against to even get anything done. I don't think it's misinformation in a negligent sense, or not in a negligent sense, but an accidental sense. This is intentional misinformation. The shooting in Chicago was very clear. Clear as the noonday sun. The guy pulled a gun on a police officer and shot at him, so they shot back. Everybody can hear the gunshots. Everybody with a brainstem understands what's going on, but they lie so that they can then push a different agenda. They lie so that they can go downtown and start rioting and protesting, or not protesting, but looting. It's all a lie. If they really wanted to do something about police misconduct, we all can work together on that subject matter. There's nobody in America that wants police to be acting up and want people to die unjustifiably. But if you're going to go out and say F the police and that every police officer is bad, you're going to fight to support justified shootings or support the criminal in a justified shooting, you're not going to ever get anywhere.
And even when it comes to our elected leaders, I mean, it wasn't too long ago where there did seem to be a promise of police reforms. I mean, Republicans were working on legislation, Democrats were working on legislation, and really the only sticking point that they couldn't agree on was abolishing qualified immunity outright. And now, here we are weeks later, and there's no progress done because neither side was willing to give on that front, whereas that Republican legislation actually probably would have been championed by Democrats not too long ago. I think that because it's an election year, nobody wants to give anyone else a victory on this front. But when we look at someone like Chicago or Portland, let's use the example of Chicago. They don't want to bring in the National Guard right now. Do you think that the National Guard's use should be implemented in more cities that do see this type of unrest?
100%. If the local law enforcement agencies and state police are not able to contain these situations and protect the public, you need to then go to the federal level. That's what the federal government is for. If they're not going to step in and help out in states that need it, then what's the point? Give us our tax money back. They're supposed to be there to help out. And these mayors and these governors and some of these liberal states, they don't want them to come in because then it will expose the fact that they have no control over their state. They have no control over their cities. This has nothing to do with actually helping people and more to do with a political agenda. They want to look good. They want their candidates to look good, and they want President Trump to look bad. But if they really cared about the people, they will be welcoming the federal government to come in and at least help out and partner with local law enforcement to mitigate life, to mitigate the damage of property, and to help out and not have so many police officers locally getting hurt.
And Brandon, I hear a lot of conservatives say that the media facilitates these protests in some way by trying to justify them, like giving credence to the idea that I understand that some of them may be upset about police brutality, some of them may be upset about George Floyd, but they almost defend the rioting and looting, saying that that is something that should be understood as a off-break of the other protesting. Do you think that the media is facilitating this subject, whereas the average American looks at this and says, I don't want to take part in rioting, looting, or anything of the sort. I am totally against this type of behavior?
The media is 100%, some media outlets are 100% complicit in what's going on because they peddle misinformation. They know for a fact that there's more information to some of these shootings, but yet they put out preliminary information that they know will cause chaos. Because if it bleeds, it leads. We all know what's going on here, and they're pushing an agenda so you can watch their news channel, so they can create chaos and confusion, so they can go and report on it. That's simply what it is. They are pushing this agenda. They are pushing a narrative that's a complete lie. Black Lives Matter at this point is a terrorist organization, in my opinion. It's a complete lie. It has nothing to do with Black lives. They haven't supported anybody. You go to their website and donate to Black Lives Matter, it's going to Democrats. And you explain to me how the media isn't talking about that 24 hours a day. This is literally pimping of the emotions of the Black community. And again, the media is a part of that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up another interesting point, and it's the idea that I think a reasonable person can look at these protests and understand that there are some valid complaints or some valid protesters out there in the streets, but to say that it's entirely peaceful or entirely violent one way or the other, the average person looks at what's happening and they see protesters on the streets and then they see violence breaking out at night. And I think that the average viewer understands that these two things are happening simultaneously, that there could be some good protesters, but there could also be a lot of violence taking place. And when the media ignores one of those stories, one way or the other, it breaks down trust in media because people know exactly what's going on, especially the people that are living in these cities, seeing this type of activity break out firsthand. I think that's something that a lot of Americans are starting to see through when it comes to the media. But Brandon Tatum, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight and breaking down this issue. Thank you.